What's up, people? Looks like we got some stuff to talk about. First and foremost on everyone's mind right now is the release of the NFL schedule. It released yesterday. Obviously, if you look at all the schedules, there's a lot of interesting things kicking around, but I'm just going to be, in this video, focusing on the home team, the Seattle Seahawks, talking about what their schedule looks like. So, looked at it yesterday, looked at it today, and here are my thoughts. So, let's go over some things I like about our schedule this year and things that I don't like. So, first things I like, number one, our bye week is in week 12. That strikes me as a very good spot to have a bye week. And we're getting our bye week right before games against the Saints, 49ers, and Giants. And those are three teams that I expect to be playoff teams this year. The Saints game actually being on a Monday night, meaning that we're actually getting 2 weeks and a day off. So we get a very long break period in between those two games. So that's good. And it will help us, heal up and get our minds right for the final stretch of the season. Number two, we have 5 of our last 8 games are at home. Like last year, we start off with a road-heavy schedule and we finish up with a home-heavy schedule. 5 home games in the last 8, including playing the Rams, Cardinals, Saints, Vikings, and Bucks. So if we get to the second half of the season and we really need some wins to get, good playoff positioning into the playoffs period, win the division, then the opportunity will be there for us to take advantage of all those home games. And number 3, to kind of add on to that, our last 2 games of the year are at home against the Cardinals and Rams. So if we get to the end of the season, kind of like last year once again, and we need some big wins to make sure we get into the playoffs or get to the position we want to, we're going to have 2 home divisional games to wrap up the season. I think we had 3 last year, actually, but, this is good. In case we need wins at the end of the year, we have 2 games that we should win and 2 games that will count extra towards our ability to get a high playoff seed because they're within the division. So those are the things that I like. And we already knew this beforehand, but I also like the fact that we're playing the AFC South, a division that I really don't think is going to be that good this year. We actually play all 4 AFC South teams in a row early in the season. Obviously, Jacksonville is Jacksonville. Tennessee is Tennessee right now. And we actually have a back-to-back at Houston and at Indianapolis, but I have pretty significant concerns about both those teams going into this year. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year, in all likelihood. So I feel pretty good about playing the AFC South. Now, here are some things that I don't like, or perhaps more accurately, things that concern me slightly. Number 1 is I think our schedule starts off in an area that could put us at a real disadvantage over the first half of the season. Now, last year, if you watch this team, you know that we won all of our home games, but on the road, we basically, with the exception of the Buffalo Bills game, every game was close, and, with a close game, you can win it or lose it at the end, and more often than not, we ended up losing those games. If you think back to games against, Miami, Arizona, St. Louis, even the 49ers to some degree, to the Lions, it's even against the mediocre to outright bad teams that we played on the road, it was difficult for us. We barely managed to pull out victories against the Panthers and the Bears, and they ended up being, below average to above average teams. So when I look at the start of our schedule, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're starting off on the road, going to Carolina. Now, Carolina is a team that last year was slightly below average, and the year before they were slightly below average, but they are not a bad team. Now, the last 2 years, they've started out like a bad team and then made comebacks at the end of the season to have a more respectable record, but they are a team that, looking at this Seahawks team having to travel 3,000 miles across the country to go play them, they're not a good team, at least not right now. I have no reason to believe that they're a good team. they haven't been good for the last couple years, and really their cap situation precludes them having any real chance of getting better anytime soon because of all the money they paid their running backs and other players. But that being said, they are a team that has some strengths, and that's the kind of game that last year we would have played down to the wire, and at the end of the game you might win, you might lose. It comes down to one play. So that's just the kind of game that we could end up blowing in the last couple minutes, and then we're starting 0-1. And then week 2, we go play our toughest home game of the year. The best team we're going to play this year is the 49ers. Week 2, we play them at home. Now, I fully expect to win that game. It's a nationally televised game in front of the home Seahawks crowd in the home opener, but that is the toughest home game we're going to play all year. So, admittedly, I think we'll win both those games, but we don't have layups. It's not out of the question to say we could start 0-2, and that's a hole, it's tough. And then, we get an probably easy game against Jacksonville, but then you're going to Houston and to Indianapolis, two teams that I don't think will be as good as they were last year, but they still might be pretty good. Back-to-back road games, that's tough. And then a couple weeks later, we go at Arizona on a Thursday night. Now, if you remember last year, the road teams tended to really struggle on Thursday night games because it's a short week and you're traveling. So for us to go down to Arizona, and that's a game that we should win if we want to be what we're going to be, if we want to be what we think we can be this year. That's a road game we have to find a way to win. If we want to be the team that we think we can be this year, then we probably need to find a way to win at least 4 games on the road, and that's one of them. So we have to find a way to grind that game out, because on that short week, going to Arizona, it's not going to be easy. So that puts us in a precarious position for that game. The good news is that means we get an extra long week because our next game is a Monday nighter at St. Louis. So that gives us a big advantage for our next divisional road game. So it's a double-bladed sword, but having to go on the road on a Thursday night game is never good. So those are some things about this schedule that concern me a little bit. And I guess the last thing you would say is that the December, now I said the second half of our December looks very favorable, but we do have back-to-back at the San Francisco 49ers. That is going to be the hardest game we play this year, and that's going to be one game that right off the bat, at this point in time, I would probably expect us to lose. I mean, I could see us going in there and winning, but I'll just say it. For us to go into San Francisco late in the season, unless they have some kind of injury to Kaepernick, I would not be surprised at all if we drop that game. And then we go to New York to play the Giants, which is a very long road trip. So if we go into December needing some victories, we have those last 2 games to look forward to, but we have to get through those 2 very tough games. That's probably the hardest part of our schedule right there, having back-to-back at Frisco and at the New York Giants. Other than that, we also have to play the NFC South, and in my opinion, all the teams in the NFC South are going to be at least average this year. You have the Falcons, they'll be good. I don't know if they'll be as good as they were last year, but they will be good. They will be competitive. The Buccaneers, I think, are going to be at least average, but I think they have the potential to be more than that. The Saints, I think, are going to bounce back in a big way this year. I think they're going to have a good season. And Carolina, they're probably on the bottom of that poll, but they have some strengths. They can do some things. I don't know if they're going to do them, but I could see them having a decent season. I could see them, 7-9 is probably their worst case scenario in my mind, but I could see them pushing for a playoff spot. So that's going to be a tough division to play. And yeah, that's about it for this schedule. That's basically the rundown of how I feel about it right now. So there's a lot to like, there's a lot to be scared of, and ultimately, looking at this schedule, I think we can pull 12-4. I think we'll win all of our home games like we did last year. I mean, the toughest team we're going to play at home this year is the 49ers, and based on last year, I have every reason to believe that's the game we should win. I mean, 49ers are going to be really good this year, but we can't be scared of them. We have to look at that and go, bring it on, because they're that good, but we also think we're that good. So we have to step up to that. And then you have the Jaguars, the Titans, the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Saints, the Cardinals, and the Rams. A lot of those games are against teams that just aren't at the top tier and are teams we should fully expect to beat at home. A couple of those teams are probably going to be pretty good this year, but I absolutely believe we'll go 8-0 at home this year, barring catastrophic injuries. And then we just have to find a way to dig out 4 road games. Looking at it, there's Carolina, and then there are, there's at St. Louis, and maybe we go to Atlanta and get revenge on them. And I think we can take one of the 2 between Houston and Indianapolis. So there are a couple opportunities to find a way to win those 4 road games, but I think that's what we need to get to where we want to go this year. So that's my thoughts on the schedule. Let me know what you think.